Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back. It's the week of June 1st, 2020. Can't believe summer is almost here. This week, you're going to be working on fractions, and more specifically, fractions on a number line. So I want to do a quick review with you before we get started. Remember, fractions are equal parts of a whole. Number lines can show equal parts of a whole or fractions. We have previously used number lines, so this is a review lesson, but we have also used shapes, squares, rectangles, circles, to show fractional amounts of the whole. Now, on a fraction, remember the numerator. It's the number that is above the fraction line, and the numerator tells the number of equal parts that are being described. The denominator is the number below the fraction line that tells the number of equal parts in the whole. Unit fractions always have a 1 as the numerator, showing that each fraction of the whole is the same amount. So we are going to continue and see how we do. So right now, what unit fraction is each part of this whole? Now you have right here, and I'm going to see if I can draw, you have a rectangle, and this rectangle has 3 equal pieces in it. This blue piece, and the white piece are all exactly the same amount. So what unit fraction is each part of it? If there are the numerator describing what it is, each part is 1. And if I take the denominator as the total number of equal parts in the whole, I know there are 1, 2, 3 parts in the whole. So what fraction is a unit? Each one of these is worth 1/3. And so if I take this and I say this blue piece is 1/3, this blue piece is 1/3, and this white piece is 1/3. Unit fraction always has 1 at the top, and the denominator is always how many equal parts in the whole. So what fraction of the whole is shaded? How many pieces of that whole is shaded? Give me a second to think about it on your own. And if I'm looking at this, I'm going to say there's 1, 2 blue pieces. So I know I'm talking about 2. That's the number being described. And then my denominator, there were 3 pieces in all. So what fraction of the whole is shaded? 2/3, or 2 out of 3 pieces. So let's look at number 1 here. This number line shows whole numbers. You have from this jump to this jump is 1 whole. And then you have another whole. And then you have another whole. And they're all exactly the same amount. So the distance from each number to the next is 1 whole. Complete the number line by filling in the missing number labels. So if we start at 0 and we go 1 whole, what do we get to? Yep, the number 1. If we jump another whole, what do you think? Number 2. And the final jump, again, it's another whole number. So if we go from 0 to 1 to 2, we will, of course, end at 3. So this number line is showing whole numbers. Fractions on numbers that name parts of a whole. So you can show fractions on a number line. On the number line below, the whole that is between 0 and 1 is divided into equal parts. Label each part of the area model with the unit fraction it represents. Let's think about that unit fraction. Remember what we said earlier, unit fraction is always going to have a 1 as the numerator. So if we look at this, we know we have a whole number 0. We know we have a whole number 0 and we have a whole number 1. And when we're counting, we go 0, 1, 2, 3, so we know they're whole numbers. If we look, our whole is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. Those 4 sections are exactly the same amount. So if I'm going to label the first part, I know that it is 1 out of the 4 equal parts. If I'm going to label the middle one, it's also only one piece out of 4 equal parts. The next one again is only 1 out of the 4 equal parts. And finally, this last is exactly the same amount. Unit fractions explain what amount each piece is worth. And if you have a fraction and they're equal parts, they're all worth the same thing. You can count fractions on a number line just like you can count whole numbers. So we're going to fill in the blanks to count the fours below. So I'm going to take a look. Here's my model. I'm counting those fours. So right here, I have 1/4. This is another one, which makes it 2/4. I got another one here, 3/4. And I go over here, I know I have 4/4. I'm counting all the equal parts. So now we're going to count the fourths on the number line and finish labeling. So if I start at 0 and I go to my 1/4, that's all I used. Let's pretend it's a cake. I just ate 1 out of the 4 equal pieces, so I ate 1/4. But let's say I give Justin 2 of those equal pieces. He's now not going to have 1/4, but he is going to get 2 out of the 4, or 2/4. Same thing. If I have 1 piece, I eat 1/4. 2 pieces, I eat 2/4. If I eat 3 pieces, that means I eat 3/4. And if I eat all 4 pieces, what does it mean I've eaten? I ate the whole cake. You can also use number lines to show fractions greater than 1. So complete the number line below by filling in the missing fraction labels. First of all, let's think about this. How many wholes do we see on this number line? Giving you a second. Hopefully you're looking and you are seeing, let me get my color, and you are seeing one whole going from 0 to 1, and you are seeing another whole going from 1 to 2. So if I go from 0 to my whole, I know this number line is showing 2 wholes. So now if we're going to talk about labeling the fraction, what is each one of those wholes divided into? My first whole here is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. So my second whole has to also be divided into 4 equal parts. So if I'm going to think about this and I'm going to go one of those parts, I go from 0 to this little line here, I only went 1/4 of the whole. If I go from 0 and decide to jump all the way here, now I've had 1/4 and 1/4, so I went from 0 to 2/4. And so on. I can keep counting. Now I'm using 1/3 out of the 4 equal parts. Here, I'm using 4 out of the 4 equal parts. And I can tell what my 4 out of the 4 equal parts is. If I go into my next whole, I have this whole whole, which is 4 equal parts, plus one more of those equal parts gives me 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, and 8/4. I know that 8/4 is the same thing as my 2 wholes. So when you're looking at a number line, first figure out how many wholes are on that number line. Then figure out how many equal parts did we divide each whole into. Then you can begin counting those equal parts. Okay, we're going to take a look at the reflection question here. And it wants us to look at the fractions on the number line in problem 4. Why do you think the numerator and denominator are the same in the fraction that names one whole? And what they were saying is on our number line, we had a box, a rectangle, that was divided into 4 equal parts. And we knew 0, 1/4, 2 fourths, 3 fourths, 4 fourths. And I want you to think here, why do you think the numerator and the denominator are the same in this fraction that names 1 whole? I'm going to pause just for a second, give you a couple minutes to get your thoughts before I go over it with you. Thinking about it. Here's my picture. I know the numerator's 4, the denominator's 4, and I know if there are 4 over 4, I'm telling you, it names 1 whole because I got to the end. I got from the 0 all the way to the 1. Why? I'm going to tell you why. Because if you have 4 equal parts and you use all of those parts, did you use the whole thing? So if your numerator, what you're describing, what was used, the 4 that were used, and your denominator is describing how many equal parts are, and if they are the same thing, then it must be the whole. So I take a look at this one up here. If I showed you this, now I have not a number line, I have a shape, but we're going to do it on a number line as well. So I have my 0 to 1, here's my whole, 0 to 1. So if I think about this, and I use 3 squares, so I used 3. How many were there all together? 3. So my numerator and denominator are going to be the same thing, and I colored in the whole. Same thing on the number line. If I use 1 out of 3 parts, 2 out of 3 parts, and now I color in this one. Here's my 1/3, here's my 2/3, and I want to color in this one. It's my 3/3 or my whole. So that's what you're going to be taking a look at. You're going to be thinking about fractions on a number line. If you need to go back with the shape, because that's what you understand, do both like I just did up here. But be thinking about, what does it mean when I divide a whole into equal parts, I get a fraction. Each one of those parts is a unit fraction, and it's all worth the same. This would have been 1/4. This would have been 1/4. This would have been 1/4. And this piece would have been 1/4. They were all exactly the same amount. If I want to use one of them, I use 1. But if I want to use 2 pieces of that cake, then I'm going to eat 2 out of the 4. So I ate the fraction 2/4. If I want to eat 3 pieces out of that cake, then I have 3/4 a fraction that I ate, and so on. So, boys and girls, you're going to be practicing this week just this. You're going to be going through a couple workbook pages. I did not assign all of them for you to complete and send to me. I only assigned a few. But the others, you can practice and do it. You're going to start with the sessions. Go through them after you have watched this video. Watch the interactive video that is on the iReady. Remember, it's on the teacher assigned side. When you log into iReady and you click math, you have 2 sides. You have my path and you have the teacher assigned. The video is one of those lessons. This time it's titled Fractions on a Number Line. Go through that. Then go through all the sessions and the workbook pages. Then, towards the end of the week, take the lesson comprehension quiz so that you can do a good job on it. Miss you. Hope you guys get to enjoy some of this beautiful weather and keep up with my math. Don't forget, I also want some of you getting on the iReady and 45 minutes at least on your path. But just as important, give me 2 lessons passed. Bye, you guys. See you next time.